Discover how a new waitress transformed the life of an incredible billionaire in 30 days. Sarah had always believed there was magic at the small diner on Main Street, where regulars gathered, laughter mingled with the smell of fresh coffee and pancakes. It was here, amidst the hustle and bustle, she poured her heart into each cup she served, dreaming of brighter days for her and her 7-year-old son, Ben. The diner was a world alive with stories, but to Sarah, it often felt like a gilded cage, showcasing her struggle as a single mother since her divorce. Every night she returned to their modest apartment feeling both exhausted and invisible. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves crunched beneath her feet, a familiar face strolled into the diner, Jack, the billionaire who had left their quaint town years ago in pursuit of untold riches. Sarah recognized him immediately. Even if he was a stranger now, he had been the quiet boy down the street. Now he inhabited a world devoid of simplicity. As he ordered coffee from her, their eyes met. It was a fleeting moment, but she felt a jolt of connection, an acknowledgement of shared roots. "Coffee black, please," he said, his deep voice tinged with an underlying loneliness. As she poured, their conversation began to unfold, revealing cracks in their perfect facades. Sarah spoke of late nights working to provide for Ben while Jack revealed the pressures that came with his wealth. Little did they both know that this simple exchange was the start of something transformative. Weeks passed, and their friendship flourished over shared meals and laughter. Jack found solace in the welcoming diner atmosphere that he had long forgotten, while Sarah discovered a window to dreams bigger than her current reality. They were both fighting battles, and somehow, amidst the clinking of silverware and the chatter of townsfolk, they learned to lean on each other. Jack started to help Sarah see beyond the diner walls she felt so trapped in, while she opened his eyes to the warmth and vibrancy that only a community could offer. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but just as the clouds overhead began to part and hope filled their hearts, a scandal broke. Whispers ricocheted through town, and loyalty was cast into doubt like autumn leaves in the wind. The townsfolk looked at Jack differently now, some with curiosity, others with suspicion. Sarah felt a tightening in her chest. She was caught in the crossfire between what was safe for Ben and what fate had unexpectedly thrown her way. Should she stand by Jack, who had become more than a friend, or protect the fragile sense of security she had built for her son? As the rumblings of discontent grew louder, Sarah wrestled with her values. Should she risk the safety of her world to support a man who had quickly become a lifeline, or should she remain within the protective bubble of community judgment? With the sun setting on their little town, Sarah stood at a crossroads. Her heart raced, filled with uncertainty. Would she embrace the hope that their bond could bring, or shatter under the weight of public opinion? The answers hung in the air, creating a poignant tension, one that left her wondering if true loyalty could prevail in a world driven by chaos and fear. The days following the scandal were heavy, each ticking second echoing Sarah's internal turmoil. She returned to work at the diner each morning, her heart weighed down by the judgmental looks and hushed whispers that followed her every step. The same customers who once shared laughter over pancakes now avoided eye contact, casting nervous glances in Jack's direction. It stung, but she steeled herself. There was more at stake now than her own reputation. Jack, too, felt the strain. He would come in at odd hours, hoping to avoid the crowds that thronged the diner during lunchtime. His charming smile was still there, but now it seemed weary, as if burdened by the weight of gossip. Sarah noticed the spark in his eyes dimmed a little each time, and it broke her heart. Despite the chaos, a bond had formed between them that felt unshakable. She believed in him. One rainy afternoon, Sarah found herself wiping down tables, the rhythmic sound of raindrops tapping against the diner window mirroring the turmoil in her mind. Suddenly, the bell above the door jingled, and there he was, Jack, soaking wet, hair tousled and clothes clinging to him. Sarah rushed over, her heart racing. "Jack, are you okay?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern that he nodded, but the forced smile couldn't mask the gravity of his situation. "I just wanted to see you. It's been hard to breathe out there," he admitted, sinking into a booth. She could see the vulnerability hidden behind his stoic demeanor. Without thinking, Sarah sat down across from him. "You're not alone in this. I want to stand by you. I'm scared, Jack." His gaze softened. "I don't want you to feel like you have to choose. I'd never put you in a position like that. But it feels like my world's crumbling, and I don't know if I can fight for us for this." Silence fell between them, heavy and raw. They both knew the stakes, every fleeting moment felt precious yet fraught with uncertainty. "I believe in us, Sarah," he said finally, his voice steady. "We can weather this storm. I want to fight for you, for Ben if you're willing." She searched his eyes, feeling the pull of a connection that was deeper than any scandal or skepticism. "But what about everyone else? They won't understand." "Then let them judge. Love's worth fighting for, and so are your dreams." His words struck a chord within her. Was it true? Could they forge their own path, regardless of the noise that surrounded them? Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Okay. I'll fight for us. For our chance to be happy." They shared a smile, a fragile and hopeful promise of loyalty against the odds. But as she reached for his hand, a familiar voice interrupted them. It was Margaret, the diner's most opinionated customer, her hawkish gaze scanning the scene. "What's this about, then? Are you two an item now?" Ice gripped Sarah's heart. The weight of judgment threatened to crush them. Jack's fingers tightened around hers, and for a moment, they held on, bodies anchored in defiance. This was just the beginning, and the road ahead promised to be turbulent. As they left the diner, Sarah felt a surge of determination. If they were going to stand against the tide, they would need a strategy, something that wouldn't just clear Jack's name but solidify their bond as invincible. But first, she had to confront the relentless gossip. The next day, a town meeting was scheduled, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Little did Sarah know, that meeting would change everything, and testing their loyalty in front of the entire town would set into motion an unforeseen series of events that would leave them breathless. Would they emerge unscathed, or would the weight of community pressure crush their dreams before they even began? The day of the town meeting arrived, the air thick with tension and whispered rumors. Sarah could feel the knots in her stomach tightening as she pulled into the crowded parking lot. Cars filled every inch, their roofs glistening from the misty rain that had started to fall again. With each step toward the community center, she could sense the eyes of the townsfolk on her, heavy with expectation and judgment. Inside, the room was buzzing. A long table at the front was filled with local leaders, the mayor, school board members, and, of course, Margaret, who seemed to relish this moment of power. Chairs creaked under the weight of anxious patrons, and children fidgeted, unsure of what their parents were whispering about. Sarah inhaled deeply, steeling herself for what was to come. Jack arrived just as the meeting was about to start. He looked crisp in a pair of dark jeans and a button-down shirt that made him seem both approachable and formidable. His presence calmed her racing heart, even as they sat down, hands brushing against each other under the table. This small contact felt like an anchor, grounding her in the swirl of chaos. The mayor started the meeting with his usual pleasantries before transitioning into the topic of the scandal. "We are here to address the recent events surrounding Jack's departure from the local construction project and the resulting fallout in our community." The word sent a ripple of discomfort through the room. Sarah noticed how heads turned, eyes darting around, eager for some kind of drama. Jack took a deep breath as the mayor launched into the accusations. "We need to ensure that our community values honesty and respect," he declared, glancing pointedly at Jack. Sarah could see the tension in Jack's shoulders. He was fighting the urge to defend himself, and she squeezed his hand gently, offering silent support. Then, Margaret stood up, her voice clear and biting. "Jack doesn't just tarnish his own name. He tarnishes all of ours. We can't allow someone with his questionable morals to mislead this town. Her words danced through the air, igniting a wave of murmurs. Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks. The indignation bubbled inside her. Who did Margaret think she was? Taking a stand was what Jack needed, and they would face this together. It was time to speak. With her heart pounding loud enough to drown out the chatter, Sarah stood up, the eyes of the room turning toward her. "Excuse me," she said, her voice shaking slightly but growing steadier with each word. "This isn't just about Jack. It's about all of us. We've all made mistakes, and instead of tearing each other down, we should be lifting each other up." The room fell silent, and Jack's eyes met hers, full of admiration and surprise. Gossip and judgment only serve to divide us further. "We shouldn't let fear dictate our actions or our future," she continued, emboldened by Jack's unwavering gaze. "This man has done so much for our community. He deserves to be supported, not shamed." A few heads nodded amongst the crowd, but Margaret wasn't done yet. "That's all well and good, Sarah, but what about the consequences of his actions? Do we really want to ignore that?" Jack stood up beside her, his voice strong and steady. "I take full responsibility for what I did. But I am here to make things right. I'm committed to this town, just as I am committed to Sarah. We can face this if we stand together." As the hall began to buzz once more with debate, Sarah felt a sudden flicker of hope. She had said what she needed to say, and they had created a moment of unity in the storm of chaos. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw a figure lurking at the back, a man she recognized from past town meetings. The look in his eyes sent a chill down her spine. Could he have known something that would change everything? Before she could ponder it further, the man stepped forward, raising his hands to quiet the room. Sarah held her breath, her heart racing as she waited for the next revelation that could alter the course of their fight. The hush in the room was palpable as the man approached the front. He was tall, with scruffy hair and a face shadowed by uncertainty. Sarah felt every pair of eyes on him, a collective anticipation hanging thick in the damp air. I just wanted to say something," he stammered, his voice shaky but growing stronger with each word. "My name is Tom, and I've been part of this town for a long time. I remember when Jack worked on the last community project, the playground renovations." He paused, searching the crowd for familiar faces. Jack stood taller, his gaze steady on Tom, waiting for him to continue. "I know we're all worried about what happened. Trust me, I've been there. But I saw how hard he worked. I saw how much he cared." The crowd murmured restlessly, a mix of skepticism and curiosity. "But I also saw things that didn't feel right," Tom continued, his voice cracking as he pointed towards Jack. "There were times when corners were cut, and it felt like the company was prioritizing profit over the community. I didn't say anything back then. I thought it was just how things worked." Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her. Was this what they were waiting for? A confession? A revelation? Jack's hands balled into fists at his side. The flush of anger crept up his neck, but he seemed to hold himself back. "I'll take responsibility for my part, Tom," he said, his voice low and controlled. "But it's not about blaming each other. It's about finding a way forward together." The crowd stirred again, torn between wanting to reconcile and the instinct to retreat into familiarity. Margaret's eyes sparkled with the opportunity to shift the narrative, her teeth showing in a smirk that felt like a slap. "See? Even here, we have someone who admits to doubt, to fear for our community and the ethics of our leaders." She shot back, a pointed finger aimed at Tom. "Are we really going to put our trust in those who've shown us they can't be trusted? Jack's past actions put everyone in jeopardy." "Enough," Sarah blurted, rising to her feet once more. The room quieted as frozen stares turned to her, the tension thick as she dared to speak again. "We know Jack has made mistakes, but we also know he has worked with us for years. The difference between the past and now is our choice to learn and grow. A tension-filled silence lingered between them, but Tom's expression softened, his eyes reflecting something almost defeated. "I didn't come here to tear him down. I just your right to speak up, Tom," Jack interjected gently. "And the fear you expressed? I feel it too. I risked my career and let you all down. But I want to make this right. Not just for me, but for us as a community." For a moment, Sarah thought she saw a flicker of hope in Tom's eyes, but it was swallowed quickly under layers of doubt. The murmurings of the crowd began to rise again, a cacophony of divided opinions rising and falling. Then, just as the tension hit a peak, the room's door creaked open again, and a figure stepped in that made everyone pause. It was Helen, the town's most respected elder, known for her wisdom and composure. But today, she looked uncharacteristically frazzled. "Please," Helen said, her voice filled with urgency. "I have something important to share, something that may change everything for Jack in this town. You deserve to know the truth." Sarah's pulse quickened. What truth could possibly alter this already shaky ground? Was it a revelation that would tear them apart or unite them at last? The air crackled with anticipation as all eyes turned toward Helen, waiting for whatever was coming next. Helen stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her glasses. Her normally steady demeanor was overshadowed by an intensity that demanded attention. "Thank you for your patience, everyone," she began, her voice rising above the whispers. "I know this is a difficult time for all of us, but sometimes it takes a jolt to wake us up to what's really going on." The crowd leaned in, drawn by her words like moths to flame. "I've known Jack since he was a boy. I watched him grow, stumble, and learn. But there is something I need to address, something that has been hidden in plain sight for far too long." Jack shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Sarah, then back at Helen. A knot of tension twisted in Sarah's stomach. What could Helen possibly mean by that? "I know this may not seem connected," Helen continued, "but it involves decisions made not just by Jack, but by all of us. Do you remember the rumors about Jack's project from last year? The one that promised to revitalize our community?" A few heads nodded, uncertain expressions confirmed the weight of Helen's words. "Well, the truth is Jack wasn't the only one involved in that project. He was pressured by others, investors, big names that wanted to make a profit, diminish community involvement. When things went wrong, it was easy to point fingers at Jack alone." Tom's expression wavered between relief and uncertainty. Jack's brow furrowed deeply, not quite ready to accept this new layer of complexity. "Are you saying that he started?" But Helen raised a hand to stop him. "The pressure he faced pushed him into making mistakes, but it wasn't solely his fault," Helen said. "We were all tempted by promises of modernity, progress at any cost. Together, we chased the allure of money over what we truly valued, our community." The silence hung thick. Sarah searched the faces around her, some looked shocked, others angry. The tension splintered like glass shattering underfoot. "What do we do with this information?" someone shouted from the back. "I don't want this to turn into a blame game," Helen replied, her voice resolute. "Instead, it can be a way to heal. We must unite, rather than divide, to prevent this from happening again." "You want us to forget everything?" Margaret scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "Is that how we learn from our mistakes?" "No," Helen replied, unwavering. "But we must understand the whole story before we make judgments. Everyone plays a part. If we truly care about our town, we must believe in its future rather than its failures." Jack's expression softened. "Sorry doesn't fix the past, but I will do anything to carry this community forward. I want to change not just tactics, but my approach. I know I need to become a better leader, one who listens and learns." Tom looked at Jack with newfound hope, a flicker of something like trust emerging. "What if we start a new initiative? Something that involves the community directly in better practices? A chance to change, together." Murmurs of agreement echoed through the crowd, shaking off the weight of despair that had settled. Then, suddenly, a loud crash came from the back of the room, cutting through the hopeful moment. The crowd turned, gasps escaping their lips as the sound of splintering wood rang out. A figure stumbled, clutching their arm. "You don't understand." A young woman shouted, wincing in pain. "You think it's just about Jack. It's for all of us. The truth is much darker." The atmosphere shifted again as a heavy dread replaced the curiosity. The town had become a battleground of fears and secrets. What had this unexpected guest just exposed? Sarah's heart raced. The conversation may have just taken a dangerous turn, plunging them into a deeper chaos. What truth could be darker than they had already faced? As the crowd fell silent, a new tension brewed, intermingled with fear and uncertainty. The answers loomed just out of reach, and Sarah could feel the stakes rising. What would it take to unravel this community's buried secrets? Her stomach twisted at the thought. The young woman adjusted herself, leans on the counter as the crowd shifted their focus. The murmurs dissipated, replaced by an anxious stillness that threatened to crack wide open. "I'm sorry," she continued, her voice shaky but determined. "My name is Emily. I saw things you wouldn't believe." Jack felt the weight of every pair of eyes on him, heavy like lead. He could barely focus on Emily's words. Just a moment ago, they had been filled with hope, the promise of teamwork. Now, this fresh wave of anxiety was turning that hope into fog. "What do you mean?" someone asked, their voice barely a whisper. Sarah's heart echoed that question. What could be so dark that it shattered their fragile moment of unity? Emily inhaled sharply, her gaze darting around the room as if the walls themselves held secrets. "Do you think it's just Jack's project that went wrong? This is bigger. The investors were planning on tearing down half the town. They took control while we were busy fighting amongst ourselves." Her voice rose, laced with panic and urgency. "We've all been manipulated." A collective gasp rolled through the crowd, creating a wave of disbelief that no one could ignore. Jack's stomach dropped, tearing down half the town. Replacing beloved landmarks, homes, memories, with cold steel and asphalt. It felt surreal, like a bad dream he couldn't wake up from. "Are you sure?" someone shouted, clutching their partner's arm. "That can't be true." "It is," Emily retorted, stepping closer. "I overheard plans being made when they thought no one was listening. They discussed profits over people, ideas about relocation. I tried to warn Jack. I wanted him to see, but he was too caught up in everything. Just like the rest of us." Jack's cheeks burned as the truth hit him like a punch to the gut. He remembered the meetings, the excitement over future projects, how often he had ignored the whispers in favor of applause. The house he'd grown up in flashed before him, the thought of it disappearing under construction sat like a weight on his chest. A ripple of anger began to form in the crowd. Whispers grew louder. Sarah looked to Tom, who seemed equally taken aback. People began to shake their heads in disbelief and fury. "We can't let this happen," someone yelled. "Not again." "Emily," Jack said, finally managing to find his voice, powered by a mix of desperation and defiance. "If what you're saying is true, what do we need to do?" Emily took a step back, eyes wide. "We have to fight back. We can't let them take our home without a fight. We need to mobilize, gather everyone, share this information. But more importantly, we need a plan." The energy in the room was shifting. Yes, it was tense, but there was also a spark. People began to murmur ideas, strategies. Jack felt the spark ignite a flame deep within him. He could be that leader he wanted to be, a leader who would listen, who would fight alongside the community. As the crowd began to rally around Emily's call to action, Sarah felt a surge of emotion, a sense of belonging, of urgency. This was about more than just a project. It was about their lives, their homes. It was about turning their pain into action. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed again, and everyone turned towards the door, hearts racing. Another figure stumbled in, this time holding a folder filled with documents. "You need to see this. You're not going to believe what I found. What new revelation awaited them, and would it bring them closer to the truth or plunge them deeper into chaos?" Sarah's breath hitched in her throat, her instinct told her they were only at the start of something monumental. The air was thick with anticipation as the newcomer stepped forward, clutching the folder like a lifeline. Jack's heart raced. He could feel the electricity in the room. The crowd, now stirred from shock into a frenzied curiosity. "Who are you?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the chaos brewing inside her. The figure looked young, maybe in their late 20s, with wide eyes that reflected both fear and determination. "I'm Alex," they said, holding the folder tightly as if it contained the answers to all their questions. "I work at the diner just outside of town. I overheard something that connects to what Emily said. You all need to see this." Jack moved closer, the crowd parting as he made his way to Alex. He glanced at Emily, whose expression was a mixture of hope and concern. They all needed clarity, and this might just be it. Alex's fingers trembled as they opened the folder, revealing a stack of documents, meeting notes, schematics, and what appeared to be promotional materials for a new project. "This is what I found last night after my shift. The investors, whoever they are, have a detailed plan that clearly outlines their intentions. They're not just tearing down buildings, they aim to reshape the entire landscape." A murmur spread through the group, a blend of disbelief and anger. Jack peered at the pages. "Can you tell us where you got these?" Alex nodded, pointing to a specific page. "I found these in the restaurant's storage room. My boss, he has been getting calls from these investors, and he mentioned something about closure contracts and relocation bonuses. I didn't understand at first, but when I saw the blueprints it clicked." Jack's hands clenched into fists. He could see it now, the investors' ruthless strategy laid bare before them. Their homes, their memories, commodities to be traded for profit. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him even harder. "We can't let this happen," Jack said, his voice deep and steady. "We need to expose this. If this is true, then we have more than just a project to save." He turned to address the crowd fully, rallying their spirits. "We have our lives." Emily stepped forward, voice unwavering. "What do we need to do, Alex? Can we find out more?" Alex nodded enthusiastically, their earlier fear giving way to a spark of determination. "I can help. We need to organize, collect evidence, and spread the word. People need to understand what's at stake here. We can't let them dismantle our community while we stand by in silence." "Let us gather a team," Sarah suggested, her heart pounding with purpose. "We can have everyone contribute. We'll reach out to folks who might have information, who might know more about these contracts." The energy in the room shifted once again, ignited by a collective sense of purpose. Ideas flowed, plans formed, and the crowd buzzed with determination. Just as hope began to swell, a sharp sound broke through an urgent clamor outside the door. It sounded like sirens, growing closer. Jack's heart sank. "What now?" Alex's eyes widened. "They're coming after us, aren't they? We need to move. They can't catch us off guard." Jack exchanged a glance with Emily, sensing the shift in tension. It was one thing to gather information, but confronting the raw, looming threat of their town being ripped apart was another matter entirely. "We need to stick together," Jack said finally. "Whatever happens, we face it as a community." As they prepared to act, Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline. Focusing on the task at hand, she pushed her fear aside. The truth was coming to light, but at what cost? Standing with her friends, Sarah glanced toward the door, bracing for whatever lay beyond. Were they ready to stand and fight? The sound of approaching sirens drew nearer, propelling her forward into the unknown. What decision would they make next, and would it change everything? Heartbeats echoed like the distant sirens as the group huddled together, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The air felt heavy with uncertainty, yet alive with determination. Jack looked around at the faces of his friends, seeing both fear and fierce resolve reflected back at him. "Okay, here's the plan," Jack began, his voice steady despite the chaos outside. "We need to split up. Save the evidence, keep an eye on the front. If they want to silence us, they'll come looking for what we have." Alex nodded, gripping the folder tighter. "I can head to the diner. If I get caught, I'll tell them I was just cleaning and didn't know anything. It'll buy us some time." "Not alone," Sarah protested. "Wait, I'll go with you." The thought of Alex facing trouble alone was too much for her to bear. She felt her heart race at the prospect, but she knew that together, they could do something more. Jack's eyes met Emily's, and he could see the mix of admiration and fear reflected. "You guys have to move fast. We'll create a distraction here. Emily and I will hold them off, buying you both time to gather what you can." As the sirens grew louder, a palpable tension filled the room. Jack took a deep breath, rallying the group. "We're not just fighting for our homes. We're fighting for our future. We won't let them take what's ours without a fight. Let us do this," Emily exclaimed, her voice cutting through the noise and gripping everyone's attention. Each person in the crowd moved with purpose, adrenaline replacing doubt. It was stunning how quickly they had transformed from a scattered group to a united front. With their plan in place, Alex and Sarah slipped away, their footsteps stealthy against the concrete floor. As they exited, Jack turned back to the others, the urgency of the situation electrifying the moment. He could nearly feel the pounding in his chest echo the sirens getting closer. "Listen up. We're not going to let them intimidate us," he said, locking eyes with each member of the group. "If we're confronted, stay calm and remember why we're here. They can't have our home. We're not just a neighborhood, we're a family." The hum of determination swept through the crowd, filling the room with a sense of purpose. They readied themselves as the sound of heavy boots approached the door, rattling in the frame. Jack's body tensed, ready for whatever would come next. Just then, the door flew open, and a stern figure stepped inside, an authority figure, dressed in a crisp suit, eyes scanning the room like a hawk. "Where are they?" he demanded, voice cold like steel, cutting through their resolve. Jack stepped forward, heart racing but relying on the newfound courage of his companions. "They're not here. You can't scare us away. You can't take our home." The man smirked, confidence oozing from him. "We'll see about that outside." Sarah and Alex moved quickly, shadows weaving through the dying light. They reached the diner, heartbeats matching the rhythm of their hurried steps, but were they truly ready to uncover the deep-seated secrets hidden inside the very walls they had called home? As the sirens faded into the background and the confrontation loomed behind them, they could only hope that the truth didn't come at a deadly cost. Would they find the evidence needed to turn the tide, or would they unleash something far more dangerous? The diner was a beacon of warmth amidst the chaos enveloping the streets. Its neon sign flickered, casting a soft glow that beckoned Alex and Sarah closer. They slipped inside, the sound of the bell above the door jingling as they entered, a stark contrast to the turmoil they had just left behind. "Stay focused," Sarah whispered, her eyes scanning the half-empty booth seats and the polished counter. The smell of coffee lingered in the air, comforting and familiar. But this wasn't just a visit, it was a mission. Alex nodded, his grip still tight on the folder that contained the evidence they hoped would change everything. "The back office. That's where it has to be," he said, nodding toward a door labeled "Employees Only." He could feel the weight of their decision settling on his shoulders. What if they were too late? What if there was nothing to find? With a shared glance, they moved toward the back. The clatter of dishes and muted conversations faded as they approached the door, revealing the slight gap that promised secrecy. Sarah reached for the knob, hesitating for just a moment. Behind that door lay the potential for truth or disaster. "Ready?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper, fear creeping into her words. "Let us just do it," Alex replied, determination glinting in his eyes. Together, they pushed the door open, a rush of stale air greeting them. The small office was cluttered with papers and old receipts, a messy reflection of a forgotten corner of the diner. There was no time to waste. They began to sift through the chaos, pulling files and boxes apart as if they were unraveling the threads of their own lives. Each piece of paper could hold a clue, something that linked the corporate entity outside with the people they cared about. "I found something." Sarah's excited voice pierced through their anxiety. She held up a manila folder, a triumphant grin breaking across her face. The label read Project Development. Heart racing, Alex leaned in to take a look, an electric spark igniting between them. Inside, they discovered a slew of documents, some containing information about plans for new developments, homes that would replace their neighborhood. Images flashed through Alex's mind, the laughter of children playing in the streets, the community potlucks and block parties, the very life that was at risk. As they delved deeper, the truth began to unfurl like the petals of a flower. It wasn't just about property, it was about lives, memories, and histories being erased for profit. But as they scoured the files, a sudden noise from outside caused them both to freeze. It sounded like heavy footsteps drawing closer, snapping their focus back to the real world. Panic surged through Sarah's veins. "We have to go, now." Before they could even comprehend their next move, the door rattled violently. Anxiety washed over them, fear clawing at the pits of their stomachs. "We have to hide," Alex hissed, eyes darting around the room. The only other response was an old filing cabinet, partially ajar. Without thinking, they squeezed inside just as the door swung open, voices flooded in, and the footsteps grew louder. Alex and Sarah huddled together, breathless and motionless. They could hear snippets of conversation, words like search, evidence, and even liabilities echoing in their minds. "What if they find us?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling with fear. "They won't," Alex replied, although his own heart raced at the uncertainty. They were mere moments away from being discovered, the very world they had fought for hanging by a thread. The footsteps stopped just inches from their hiding place. Questions hung in the air, and with every second that passed, the tension built to a breaking point. Would they be caught unaware? And what would happen next if the truth slipped through their fingers? As they waited in the dark, the truth about their community quaked beneath their anxious hearts, ready to be bared, but at what cost? Time stood still in the cramped space behind the filing cabinet. Alex and Sarah shared panicked breaths, the soft sounds of the intruders echoing through the small office. Each rustle of paper, each footstep, felt like an eternity, and a heavy sense of foreboding gripped their hearts. They huddled closer, and Sarah felt the warmth radiating from Alex, a reminder that they were in this together. It wasn't just about their individual fears anymore, it was about their entire community. Everything they cared about hung in the balance. Suddenly, a booming voice broke through the tension. "Search everywhere. They couldn't have gotten far." Sarah's stomach twisted. She knew that voice. It belonged to an investor who had no real interest in the town, only the dollar signs that came with ripping it apart. The thought sent a chill running up her spine. "I can't let them do this," she murmured. "We can't let them intimidate us." With that, the adrenaline coursed through her veins, pushing fear aside. "Stay calm," Alex whispered, gripping her hand tightly. "We'll find a way out." The two watched as several men entered the room, their expressions hard, as if they were here to seize the very soul of the diner. Papers crunched underfoot, and a sense of chaos erupted around them. "Where are the documents?" one of them barked, pacing the floor as if it were his own. Alex's breath hitched. What if they realized this office had been tampered with? What if they discovered the folder Sarah had held in her hand? Yet, just then, Sarah's heart surged with a fierce determination. If they were going to risk everything, they would do it now. "I'm going to create a distraction." Before Alex could object, Sarah nodded, steeling herself. "I'll make a noise. You find a way to sneak out and get back to the others." He opened his mouth to protest, but she interrupted him. "Trust me. I won't let you down." With that, she inched toward the door and pushed it open just a sliver, enough for her to see the group inside, engulfed in their discussions. A deep breath filled her lungs, and she kicked the filing cabinet with all the strength she could muster. It crashed against the ground, sending papers flying in every direction. What was that? The main investor shouted, eyes wide as they turned toward the noise. Go! Sarah urged Alex, her heart racing. As the men scrambled toward the other room to investigate, Alex dashed silently through the door, moving like a shadow. Sarah held her breath, watching him slip away, relief washing over her. But she didn't have time to dwell on it. With a courageous but shaky heart, Sarah stepped back, her voice steady. If you're looking for the truth, it's out there. The investors whirled around, eyes narrowing at the unexpected confrontation. Who the hell are you? The leader spat, anger radiating. I'm just a waitress, Sarah replied, defiance in every word. But I know what you're trying to do. You can't just come in and destroy everything we've built. That's none of your concern, he sneered, stepping closer. The air crackled with tension, but she held her ground. You've underestimated us. You think we'll sit back and let you destroy our town? You're wrong. In that moment, something shifted. Those words rang true, echoing the bravery she'd found along this journey. The investors stood frozen, their cold demeanor faltering ever so slightly. Suddenly, they were interrupted as the door burst open behind her. Jack stood there, flanked by Emily and Tom, their presence supportive and commanding. Step back. Jack barked, stepping protectively in front of Sarah. You're going to regret underestimating this community. With a growing crowd behind them, the tide began to turn. The momentum that Sarah had sparked ignited into a flame, fanning out like wildfire. The investors exchanged frantic glances, realizing they were outnumbered. Voices rose in solidarity from the crowd outside, each person carrying the weight of their own personal stakes. Together, we'll stand our ground. Emily shouted. A collective roar of agreement filled the air as people began to move in. Sarah felt a surge of hope swell within her. This wasn't just about preserving a diner, it was about reclaiming their lives, their dignity. They were stronger as a community, and together, they could face the chaos. As the investors reached for their phones, trying to call for backup, Jack stepped forward. You think you can just rip apart our town and walk away? You're mistaken. We want to let you silence us or the truth. With one final push, the men realized they were defeated and turned to leave. The crowd encircled them, and as the door slammed shut behind them, a wave of relief washed over the diner. Sarah turned to Jack, eyes brimming with grateful tears. We did it. We stood united. He grasped her hands, pulling her close. You were incredible, Sarah. Your courage inspired them all. Suddenly, a harmonious cheer filled the room, embracing them all. Hope bounced off the walls, mingling with the lingering scent of coffee and pancakes. They had fought for their community, and they emerged transformed. Jack stood alongside Sarah, surrounded by newfound allies, each with a renewed sense of purpose. In that moment, they understood, home was not just a physical place but the people they cherished. As whispers of future plans began to ripple through the crowd, a deep bond formed. They would rebuild, not only their homes but also the spirit of their community, and they realized that their fight wasn't just over, it was just beginning. This was the moment they would create change, resisting together with the strength of their shared love and conviction. Now is the time to make a difference. If you felt the power of transformation in this story, you need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive adventures that await. Leave a like right now to send support soaring through the algorithm. It truly matters. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this ending, because we want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible transformation. Let us keep this momentum going, friends.